Okay, this is a introduction into conjugating verbs in Lakota. Okay, so let's take a look at what we do in English. So you can see we have all our verbs here: run, play, open, read or read, cooked, closed, washed. Okay, to communicate with somebody, we have to add something to it. So these pronouns here, I and you, and we can also add we, all of you guys, and they. But in this introduction, we're just going to focus on conjugating I and you, and then we'll get into the other ones later. Okay, so this we're just building a foundation right now. So, like I said, in order to communicate these verbs to somebody in English, we have to put a pronoun in front of it. So I run, you play, you open. So you can see they are detached from the verb, but they help communicate the idea of who's doing the verb. Okay, so you can see all of those pronouns, the I, the you, they all come before the verb. And in Lakota, here's the difference, is that in Lakota, they're not going to always come in front of the verb. They're going to actually be part of the verb. So we're actually taking the verb, so whether it's run, play, open, read, or read, cook, closed, or washed, and we're attaching the I and the you directly to the verb itself. So you can see down below is just an example. But the conjugation, and the conjugation is that we're starting out with, it was I and you. It's either going to come directly attached to the front of the verb or in the middle of the verb. So that is when it's coming in front of the verb, it's a prefix, and in the middle of the verb, it's infixed into the verb. Okay, so let's look at this example. So the verb that we're gonna be using as an example, the first one we'll say is play, the verb to play. So we want to either communicate the idea of I'm playing or you're playing. So that conjugation, whether it's I or you, is either going to go in front of the verb attached to it, or it's going to go in the center or in the middle of it. Prefixed or infixed. The second example, cook, same thing. It's either going to be prefixed attached to the front of the verb, or it's going to come in the middle, infixed. So that's how the Lakota verbs are going to work. Okay, so let's look at how this works. So when we prefix a conjugation, and remember the conjugations are I, you, we, all of you, they. So in this case, we're going to be prefixing how to say I into a Lakota verb. So the prefixes are attached to the beginning of the verb root to indicate information such as who is performing the action. So in this example, we're using the verb chi, to want something. Okay, so that is our base verb. If you look up in any dictionary how to say want, it's going to say chi. All right, that's the word it's going to have. That's our base verb. There's no conjugations attached to it. Okay, so to make this into I want, we're going to prefix wa to that verb. So it becomes wa chi. I want something. Wa is attached to the beginning of the verb root chi. So wa chi, I want. Now this verb wayanka, meaning to see something, this verb takes a infix to turn it into I do the verb. So remember, the infixes are conjugations inserted within the verb structure. Okay, so it's not at the beginning, it's not prefixed, it's infixed. So this verb wayanka, to see something, to change it into I see something, this one is taking a BL to make it I do the verb. And I'll kind of explain this a little bit, why this one takes a BL and the other one took a wa. So wamblake, I see something. So the BL is the conjugation, and that means I am doing the verb. And we infix that into the verb to make it I do the verb. Okay, so the reason the last verb we just did, wayanka, became wamblake, and the verb we did at first was the chi, and we added wa to make it wachi, I want. The reason why that happened is because all verbs are going to conjugate different. So you must learn how to turn whatever verb you're learning into the I do that verb form. And then you can build off that. So this is just a little tip. So we have three main ways to conjugate verbs. Sometimes a verb is going to take wa being prefixed or infixed to it to make it I do it. Sometimes it's going to take BL prefixed or infixed to make it I do it. And sometimes it'll take ma to make it me or I. Okay, so that is just a little tip. There are some variations, but these are going to be our three main ways that are going to get us started on learning how to conjugate verbs. Okay, so let's build off of that. And if a verb takes wa to make it I do it, then it's going to change to ya to make it you do it. If it takes a BL to make it I do it, then it's going to change to an L to make it you do it. If it takes a ma for me or I, then it will change to ni for you do the verb, or that verb's affecting you. Okay, so if you could just remember that little conjugation rule, and there are some little things that are going to be different, but this will get you started on it. So anytime you learn a verb, you have to learn how to say I do that verb. When you figure out how to say I do that verb, notice whether it takes a wa to make it I do it, a BL to make it I do it, or a ma. And if you can learn that, then you're going to automatically know how to say you do it. Because if it takes a wa to make it I do it, then it's going to take a ya to make it you do it. If it takes BL that to make it I do it, it's going to take L to make you do it. If it's ma, then it's going to take ni. So just a little something to keep in mind as you're learning verbs. Okay, so let's take a look at some verbs here. So let's say that you're looking in a dictionary. You want to know how to say something. So in the bold, that is our base verb. So that's what you're going to find in the dictionary. And so you won't find the first person form or the second person form if you're searching for them. You have to find the base verb. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one, shkata, to play. So you want to know, and a lot of times in a dictionary, it'll give you maybe the first person form. And so it might just give you washkate, right? And that changes it to I play. So if we follow that rule, when it's wa for I, it's ya for you. All we got to do is flip that out. So second person, singular, which means you, is yashkata or yashkate. Okay, for yuha, to have something, first person form, we got to use a BL to make that into I do the verb. So it becomes beluha. Okay, the Y is gone. The BL is taking its place. Beluha. Okay, if we follow that rule, when it's BL for I, it's L for you. Switch them out. Luha. Okay, so you have it. The first person form, you should automatically know the second one. For ma, so we have chuita to be cold. First person singular, meaning me or I. Machuita. Okay, when it's ma for me, you flip it out with ni. So second singular would be ni chuita. You're cold. So just by using those examples, let's look at the bottom three here. So we have the verb ichu, to take something. And if you look, like I said, if you look in a dictionary, it might only give you the first person singular, how to say I do it. So that is iwachu. All right, so that becomes I take something. So if we follow that rule, you should be able to fill in how to say you take something. The next one, oyuspa, is to catch something, to seize it. If you learn how to say I do it, so obluspe, I catch something. So what would it be for you catch something? Follow that rule. When it's BL for I, it's L for you. Kuja, to be sick. First person singular, makuje. When it's ma for me or I, it's ni for you. Okay, so let's fill them in. Take a second to look at those and what would they be. So if we followed that rule, then we should know when it's wa for I, it's ya for you. So iwachu becomes iachu. Oyuspa, first person singular, meaning I. Obluspe. We want to flip that out. When it's BL for I, it's L for you, so just drop the B. Oluspa, you catch something. Makuje, all right? Flip the ma with the ni, nikuja, you are sick. Okay, so you just kind of have to catch on to that conjugation rule change. And then, like I said, it's not going to be 100% all the time like that, but a majority of the verbs you can learn like this, and it'll get you started and make adjustments along the way when you learn different things. But this is enough to get you started to try to remember that rule. So if you can figure out how to say I do the verb, then these ones flip them out with you do the verb. Wa for I, ya for you. BL for I, L for you. Ma for me or I, ni for you. Okay, and the only way to get better at this is learn as many verbs as you can. And if it helps you, you should keep a journal. You should keep a tablet or something and write down all the verbs that you learn. And I would separate them into verbs and just call this group wa verbs. And all these verbs that you learn, to change it into I do the verb, are going to take wa. All right, so make your journal and start listing all the verbs that are wa verbs. So let's take a look at some of them. So we did this one, chi, to want something. We want to change it into I want. This one takes wa, so this is prefixed. Wa chi, I want. All right, so the next one, he, to arrive here. We want to change that to I arrive here. Wahi, also prefixed. E, to arrive there, to have gone there and arrived there. So in other words, went there. Change that into I went. Wa'i. One state of being. And is there's a lot of different meanings to right? And depending on the context, it can mean a lot of different things. But one of them, in this case, is like one state of being. So you might hear this when somebody says, "Daya ya he," how are you? All right? Daya wa I'm good. So we want to change that to my state of being, wa prefixed. Okay, so here's a change because, like I said, all verbs are going to conjugate different. Whether they take wa or bl or ma to make it I do it or me. And so in this case, objeto, to buy something, you can see this is a wa verb. It's going to take wa into to make it I do it, but it's not prefixed, it's infixed.
So it becomes opchevatron. I buy or I bought something. Slolya, to know something, take slolwaye. All right, so that wa changes it to I know, and then, but it is not prefixed, it's infixed. So that's why I said it's very important to keep track of your verbs, find out where it conjugates, and make sure you put that in the right place. Okay, the next category are the BL verbs. So as you're making your journal, you can list all the verbs that you learn that use BL to make it I do the verb. So in this case, we have yuha, to have something. And so this is going to take a BL to make it I do the verb. So we add BL prefix to it. So it becomes beluha, I have. So notice that the Y is gone now. So the BL took its place, beluha. There's going to be some verbs that do that. Next one, wayanka, to see something. We add our BL to change it into I see, becomes womblake. And this one is infixed into the verb. Yoho, to be tired. The Y is going to disappear again. It becomes beluho, I'm tired. Iotaka, to sit down, becomes iblotake, I sit down. So that one's infixed just right after that first letter. And in that word, the I is taking the stress, so you have to keep that stress there. Iblotake. Iotaka, iblotake. All right, so those are some examples of BL verbs. Okay, so ma is going to work a little bit differently depending on the context. So in stative verbs, and those are verbs that describe a state of being, a condition, or quality rather than an action. So think of these when we change this to ma, think of it as I, all right, just like BL did and just like wa did, all right? So when we add ma to stative verbs, think of it as I. So let's look at some examples. So chuita, to be cold, that we're going to prefix ma to it. So ma chuita, I'm cold. Ipuza, all right, stress is on that I. So ipuza, to be thirsty. I is going to keep the stress. We're going to infix ma. Imapuze, I'm thirsty. Chantewashte, to be glad. Chantemawashte, all right, it's infixed, and that is I'm glad or I'm happy, however you want to think of it. So same thing, ma, sometimes it might be prefixed or infixed, you never know. Just as you learn the verb, learn where it goes. So the ma in this case in stative verbs, think of it as I, the ma meaning I. So we went from ma in stative verbs meaning I, and now we're going to go on to ma in active verbs. So think of it as me. So ma changed it from I, and now we're thinking of it as me with the verb. So let's look at some examples. So kipazo, to show something, we prefix ma kipazo, he or she showed me. Wayanka, to see something, infix ma into that, it becomes wamayanke, he or she sees or saw me. Ku, to give something, becomes maku, he or she gives or gave me something. Okay, so that's how ma can change the information in the verb. Am I doing the verb or is it happening to me? All right, those two different types of ma, stative verbs and active verbs. Okay, so let's go back to that conjugation rule. When it's wa for I do the verb, then we switch it out with ya to make it you do the verb. So here's an example. So we went, okay, I don't have the base verb up here, but you can see it. It's chi. So I want something. We prefixed wa to make it I do the verb. So wa chi, I want. And then whenever it takes wa to make it I do it, then we switch it out with ya to make it you do the verb. So wa chi, I want, becomes ya chi, you want.
And notice that the conjugation always stays in the same place wherever you switch it out. So wa, in this case, it's prefixed, so we're keeping that same location and prefixing chi with ya now to make it you want. Wahi, I arrive, switch that out with ya. Yahi, you arrive here. Wa'i, I went. Ya'i, you went. Wa'un, my state of being. Ya'un, your state of being. Oprewatron, I buy or I bought something. Switch it out. And the conjugation, even though these are infixed, it's always going to stay in the same place. Opreyatron, you bought. Slolwaye, I know, becomes slolyaye, you know. So there's just that little rule. When it's wa for I, it's ya for you. Okay, that rule for when it's BL, to change it into I do the verb, it becomes L to make it you do the verb. So bluha, all right, and remember this comes from yuha, to have something. So bluha, we changed it to bluha, I have something. And we just drop the B. So it becomes luha, you have something. One blake, I see something. One laka, naish one lake, you see something. Bluho, I'm tired. Drop the B. Luho, you're tired. Iblotake, I sit down. Ilotake, you sit down. All right. So just notice the conjugation's always in the same place. We're just switching them out. So the ma stative verbs, when it's ma for me or I, then it's ni for you. We're switching them out. So machuita, I'm cold. And we switch that out when we want to make it into you're cold. So ni. So we're just switching out ma and ni. So ni chuita, you're cold. Imapuze, I'm thirsty, becomes inipuze, you are thirsty. Chante mawashte, I'm glad, I'm happy. Chante niwashte, you are glad or you are happy. Okay, so we're following that that same conjugation rule. So when it's ma for me or I, it's ni for you. But let's take a look at some active verbs using ma and ni. So we have mak'u, he or she gives me. So if we follow that rule, then we're just going to prefix it in the same place, right? Nik'u. Okay, now put a check mark beside that one. Next one, makipazo, he or she showed me something. Then following that rule, we should be able to flip it out with ni. Nikipazo, he or she shows you. Wamayanke, he or she sees me. Waniyanke, he or she sees or saw you. Okay, so the reason I have you put a check mark between those top two, that we changed to niku and nikipazo, it's because there are some there are some things in Lakota where there's going to be some sound changes. And active verbs using the ma and the ni, when they have a K, that is going to change to a C. So instead of saying nikipazo, it's going to change to nichipazo. Instead of saying niku, we change that to nichu. Okay, but the ma and the ni they work enough to get you a lot of verbs. All right, but just be aware that there will be some, and then we can get into linguistics and grammar and grammar rules and everything. But I don't want to make it too complicated. Just know that there will be some verbs that will have to change when they have a certain letter, this K and stuff with active verbs. There's a few exceptions, but that's kind of getting more into it since this is just the introduction into conjugating verbs. Okay, so let's play around with some of these verb conjugations and kind of demonstrate how they can change the sentence. So we have the verb wayanke, to see something, right? And by itself, it means it's third person, so it's he or she sees him, her, or it, right? We want to change that. So this is a BL verb, so it becomes wamblake to change it into I see something, all right? And following that rule, when it's BL for I, it's L for you. So to change it into you see something, then you should know, stays in the same place, just drop the B. Wanlake, you see something. Okay, but let's flip it around and add ma in there. So it becomes wamayanke. And that changes it into something sees me, right? He, she, or it sees me. So the way that would work in a sentence, I could say Frank wamblake. I see or I saw Frank. And if I wanted to flip that out with the ma, Frank wamayanke. Frank sees or he saw me. All right, so we can play around with those conjugations and totally change the meaning of them. Okay, so let's look at this verb, okia. Okia naish okie, to help. And let's play around with some conjugations. So we have, here's some examples. So this is a wa verb, meaning it takes wa to change it into I do the verb. So jo owakie, I help Joe. Owakie. And this is another one where the stress stays on that first letter, so it never changes. Next one, we want to flip that around. We want to say Joe help me. So Joe omakie, Joe help me. So that changes our meaning. Okay, so if we go back up here to the top, Joe owakie, I help Joe. When it's wa for I, follow our rule, it's ya for you. Joe oyakiahe, did you help Joe? All right, and then this is going to be a verb that also changes. That K will change to a C. So Joe onichiahe, did Joe help you? Okay, so that's just, you have to get used to playing around with verbs and playing with the conjugations, and then seeing how they work, and you'll get better at it. All right, let's play with another verb here. So ku, meaning to give something. So woapi, we're going to use woapi, that's a book. Wa is a, so woapi wa is a book. So this is another wa verb. So woapi wa waku, I give or I gave a book to him or her. Let's flip that around and put ma in place there. So woapi wa maku, and that turns it into he or she gave me a book. And then following our rule, when it's wa for I, it's ya for you. So woapi wa yaku, you give or you gave a book to him or her. And then flip that around, and this is that example of that K changing to a C. Woapi wa nichu, he or she gives or gave a book to you. Okay, so hopefully you got a little introduction into the conjugations. You can start making your own list, and it's a good idea if you're making a journal to do the verbs that you use every day. So even in English, like what are the things that you're doing every day? Find out how to say those verbs in Lakota, and then find out how to say the first person form of it. Is it a wa? Is it a bial? Is it a ma? And then if you follow that rule, then you should know how to say you do the verb. So it's just about, you got to have patience, and you're going to build up your vocabulary. And before time, especially if you're making your own journals, that you're going to see, like, you might have started out knowing maybe only a few verbs, and then after some months go by or some weeks, it's going to start filling up, and you'll see how much you progress. So with that, there is your introduction into verb conjugations, and
we'll make some more in-depth ones, I guess, in the future. So there you go. Good luck with that. Keep practicing.